But I grew up as an ugly, awkward little girl. Because at some point, I had a baseball bat hit my nose. I had a big broken nose. I talk about all the philosophies and all the lessons that I've learned and that I now take forward to the next generation. Because one, life happens for you, not to you. And somehow we're driving and the whole van crashed on my side of the bus. But very, very smart man in my life who said, look, don't let school get in the way of a good education. We all have things in our past that keep us from our future. And it's really an ironic, annoying thing that I've taught this for years, almost 30 years, Jeff. 2 months ago, I was the guest in my own training. And as soon as it was over, I put on the high heels that I was going to wear in the competition. They're like hooker high heels. And I walked into Joshua's office wearing nothing but high heels. And I'm like, I found something I haven't seen in 49 years, and it's me.
Welcome to the show, Forbes.
Hello, Mr. Jeff. How you doing?
So excited to finally get to hang out with you one-on-one. We see each other too much at events and not enough of this.
Well, I love this. I love the background. I love the energy. You've obviously created a very cool company, as many companies, but well, and now you have a mechanical arm, so we can go for it.
I'm bionic. So now I'm robotic.
There you go.
Well, there's so many different areas I can go with you because you have just been crushing the world since pretty much forever.
Well, okay, so that's a great place to start. I haven't been crushing the world forever, and I think it's really important for your audience to know that. This point in my life, I am at a very amazing place. Happy, 2 grown kids, beautiful second husband, and a career, and a desire to motivate and inspire people. But it wasn't always like this. And I don't know how you grew up, but I grew up as an ugly, awkward little girl. And I love when people look at me going, oh, no. And I have pictures to prove this because at some point, I had a baseball bat hit my nose. I had a big broken nose. I had braces for 8 years of my life. You said you have kids.
I do.
Boy, girl?
2 girls, 19 and 12.
Okay. The thing that I think girls want when they're little, at least I did, was to be pretty, and I wasn't. And so for 2 years when I was growing up, I had a tongue thruster in my mouth. I talked like this. So nobody wanted to be my friend because nobody could understand me. And I talk about all the philosophies and all the lessons that I've learned and that I now take forward to the next generation because one, life happens for you, not to you. I couldn't communicate for 2 years of my life. Nobody could understand me. I have to write notes. And I watched other people talk and waste time. And literally just jibber jabber. And it's funny because I didn't have a lot of friends growing up because I couldn't stand small talk, even back then. So it just didn't interest me. I'd rather do schoolwork. I skipped a year of high school. I skipped a year of college. I mean, I was so focused on work and learning and education and this art of communication. And so then when I went into the real world, rather than be a lawyer like my parents thought I was going to be, I ended up becoming an actress. Landed the lead in my very first movie. And then my career took what to other people looks like a spider web. I do infomercials where we sell products on TV. I do home shopping. I've done movies and commercials and television and stage speaking. It all comes down to one thing. And I used to tell people this because agents wanted to pinhole you. I said, but I like to communicate. Thoughts, ideas, visuals. It doesn't matter what we're communicating. And when I put it together as a speaker, I'm like, I've always been meaning to do this.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it came down to I just wanted to matter. Because when I was little, nobody cared about me. I mean, my parents loved me. But no real friends, no real anything. I looked at other people and thought their lives were just so much better. Like I watched a lot of movies and TV, and I ultimately wanted to be James Bond.
Well, I mean, I think everybody wants to be James Bond.
Not every little girl.
That's true. Now you say little girl. Okay, every little boy wants to be James Bond.
Right. So my dad, I'm the oldest.
Where'd you grow up?
Long Island, New York.
Okay.
And the dad had 2 kids. He said to my mother that my child is going to fly before they can drive a car. And it kind of fed into I was flying. I got my private pilot's license at 15.
Really?
Yeah. And we didn't have a whole lot of money, which is really even more interesting. My dad was in a horrible accident. He spent 3 years in the hospital when I was in high school. But he had this passion for flying and got a couple of guys together and did it. And we went out to drive a car. You taught your girls how to drive, right? We went to the airport. And I'm like, what are we doing, Dad? He's like, well, it's a promise I made your mom before you were born. I'm like, to do what? Next thing you know, I'm in a cockpit going, oh my God. But it fostered this idea that you could do anything. You'll often hear me talk about, we just watched your intro, and what was the first thing I said? I said, there's not a lot of girls up there. Mm-hmm. There haven't been a lot of women in my industries whenever I did something. And the girls always got relegated to a certain thing. And I've kind of understood that that's the era that I grew up in.
Yep.
Your girls are facing something different.
Yep.
And the difference they're facing now is, how does it all work? How do we fit in when we have ideas and we are strong? Because it's a little confusing. You know, I was just teaching at UCLA this week, and we had a how to be a gentleman training, and then I did a how to be a woman training. But the guys, this was the funniest thing, were like, how come I have to pay for the date? And isn't that an interesting thought? What does that mean to be a gentleman? You pay why?
Why does a guy have to pay? Well, I guess historically, because in the olden days, women didn't work, the man worked.
Right.
So that was so where would the female have gotten the money to pay for the date?
But now it's still an expectation. I like when a guy pays for me.
Sure.
I also like when I can sit next to him, though, and have the same equal energy. So now it's a little confusing.
It is. Actually, now that that's an interesting point, because it's true. In the era of equality and in the era of now, I think it's amazing that how much it has transitioned to women dominating a lot of different industries that were historically male-driven.
Right.
And seeing so many more powerful women take their space and bring their voice to these industries, these niches, business, whatever. And in this era of equality, you're right. It is still kind of an acceptance that males will pay for the date.
Yeah, I mean, I still like it when a guy opens the door for me, because maybe I'm a holdover from a generation before. I don't know what it's going to look like 40 years from now.
But is it wrong? I mean, this might be a little polarizing question, but is it wrong to understand that while there should be equality and opportunity, there is a difference in gender?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, okay, for me, it's phenomenal. I love being a strong woman.
Yep.
I love feeling sexy. And by the way, I define the word sexy as seeing excellence in yourself.
Okay.
So it's not just about being this attractive thing, but there's a feminine energy on this side of the table, and I can feel a male energy on that side of the table. I think we have both. I think we need to start talking about what it means to be in your feminine, to be nurturing, to be loving, to be accepting, because guys don't like to always go there. And as a woman, to be masculine, but also to appreciate, to be feminine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've gone through a whole massive understanding of how this is going to work for me. I think everyone has to come to it on their own, and I wish we just talked about it a little bit more.
Yeah, because, I mean, you have transcended the different eras and the glass ceilings that had to be broken and the surge, if you will, of the dominant female in society taking over these roles, leading big corporations, running countries around the world, now running 4 countries, even in this country, right?
Yep.
And we've had, in 2016, I think we had the first female presidential nominee.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had more at least in the primaries. And now, again, we have another one who is, I think as of this airing, will be running for president on one side of the table. So you are seeing this. And as a girl dad, I am, absolutely. And I love to see inspiring women that my daughters can look up to and realize that anything they want to do is possible.
Yeah.
Because my biggest pet peeve is when people feel that they can't do something because they don't have the qualifications, the skills, the knowledge, the upbringing, the background. It's just not for them. It's meant for somebody else. And I think your life is a testament to that, and I'm trying to prove that in my own right, that's a load of shit.
Well, it is, and it's excuses that you put on yourself. I can't do that because of society or my parents. And I've done that as a social experiment. I have twins. I have boy-girl twins. And my daughter is choosing, and it's so interesting to watch how this happens. For me, going to college was a big thing because none of my family did. I was first of a Ukrainian-born family, and it was like, wow, you went to college. You know what I got? $200,000 worth of debt. Mm-hmm. And it was insane about trying to pay that off. And an education, I got 2 degrees in 3 years. I was crazy about this, and I never used any of it. Mm-hmm. So now I've got these 2 beautiful kids, both really smart A students, and my daughter has been inspired not to go to college. She also was inspired to become a millionaire at 18 on her own. And now at 21, she's running a company of 16 people from a laptop all around the world. Today, she's in Ireland. A couple of weeks ago, she was in Morocco and Mallorca. And now she's just said, I'm off to Belgium. I'm like, you go, girl.
And I've met her, and she's a rock star.
But that's how she was raised.
Yep.
She was raised as my right hand. She literally would come to events with me. And what she saw was because I'm, again, a little bit of pre-internet generation, I got screwed over by digital marketers, by people who I wanted to be online. I didn't understand all the mechanics. And every time something bad would happen, she'd look at it going, this isn't fair. You shouldn't take advantage of my mom. And I didn't realize that she was getting all that information. But as soon as she was of age, she'd been doing online work since she was 12. At 17, when COVID hit, both my kids were in my house. And she came downstairs and said, Mom, you should teach pitching. Like, I can't do that. So, well, why? So you've grossed $2.5 billion doing that. I said, I know, I'm brilliant. She said, well, maybe you're brilliant, but Mom, can I share with you? You have a system. I said, no, I don't. Because I'm an actress. I'm an artist. She said, yes, you do.
Yeah, you felt like it was just your style.
I did. I thought it was just me. And I really was convinced that I couldn't teach this. And she broke it down. I said, Mom, look how you set this up, do this. And you do the exact same thing all over. I mean, I did 197 infomercials and 28 years of home shopping. Okay?
My favorite appearance is still on the show 24. But
and as an actress, well, that's a whole nother thing. I love, guys, you should go to my YouTube channel. I will talk about that in a second. So she sat down with me for 3 weeks. I'd never been online. And everybody looked at me saying, oh, of course you must make money online. And I'm like, I made like $1.98. I had a ClickFunnels for 3 years. I never made a dime. And so she set up, because I couldn't set up the whole back end. I didn't understand the mechanics. Her brain is systems oriented. And I discovered, and this, I'd love to interview you on my show.
Sure.
Because when you own a company, you have a visionary and an implementer. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely.
Not
I can't do anything that we do here.
See, I didn't know that. And that's why shows like this are so important, because you're literally peeling back how companies are run.
Yep.
Right. So she did her research. She watched all the big guys and said, we always have these two entities. Mom, you're totally the visionary. You have no implementation skills. And I'm happy to implement your vision because I see the value for the next generation of what you teach. And nobody teaches pitching. Mm-hmm. And what is pitching? It's not sales. Pitching is getting someone else to say yes. You somehow coerced me to drive all the way down here from Los Angeles to be in your studio. You pitched me.
I did.
And you got a yes. Well, I'm going to tell you what. When you learn how to pitch somebody to get yeses along, you get whatever you want.
That's right.
And it's you intuitively know that. How did you figure that out?
I think in a similar track, right? Because I went to law school to be a sports agent, graduated with 2 degrees, $200,000 in debt. I don't use any of them as well, and had to learn, like you, my parents weren't entrepreneurial, never knew that word.
Right.
I was in business, but I'm in business and have sold companies. I've learned that if you can't do everything, you have to attract people who can. And that means customers, clients, employees, investors, the street, the market, whatever it's going to be. And you attract by being able to pitch.
That's you're the only person I've ever sat across from who said it exactly that way. Mm-hmm. But you're a successful business owner and you figured it out. So maybe the 2 degrees somehow help both of us. I'm not sure.
They have to. I mean, I think the degrees, even though I don't use them in their traditional sense, and neither do you, I do think they help you because education in all sense is important. Learning and having a bigger brain, as I try to explain to my daughters, being able to enter into any conversation in anything because you are educated and can contribute will enable you to create relationships, which will then open doors and then give you more opportunities to pitch.
I was often told by my very, very smart man in my life who said, look, don't let school get in the way of a good education.
Uh-huh.
But I do remember one of the first lessons. I've become a lesson collector, and that's why I love speaking. I enjoy motivating audiences. I always have done this. Even when I was little, we had to do a one-person show, and I chose Hans Christian Andersen, just this outrageous storyteller. And I remember remember Blue Books? Like
sure,
the first, when you go into your Poli-Sci 101, first lesson I ever learned, I was 15 and a half because I'd skipped a year of high school. And I'd always gotten A's. Like I was a crazy girl about getting A's, A pluses, A plus. And I got the first Blue Book test back from Poli-Sci 101, and it was a big glaring red C. Oh, shit. And I literally went to the professor.
Did your ink pen run out of ink?
It's the only professor's name I can remember, Professor Regenstreif. I went downstairs, marched into his office, and I'm like, excuse me, I think there's been a mistake. And he's like,
I don't get C's.
Well, that's what I said. I'm very, very L from I don't get C's, Legally Blonde. And he said, I said, every answer in this book is correct. He said, every answer in everybody's book is correct. I said, excuse me? He said, you're at the University of Rochester. Everybody here wanted to go to Yale and Harvard, including you, and I know that. You didn't get in. And you're going to go there for grad school. So everybody here is really smart, and it's way more competitive than you would imagine. I was like, well, okay. And then I asked the most amazing question ever that's driven the course of my life. What would it have taken to get an A? He said, we mark on a bell curve. The middle of the bell curve is a C. Everyone got it. He said, if you do all those things under suggested reading, and if you're willing to do what no one else is willing to do,
you get an A.
You can get what everyone else is not willing to. Yeah. Not only A, but my whole life has been about that, is that you look at what everyone else is doing, and it's not that hard to find. They're all in a little bubble, and you go and you do something else, or you do more, or you research more, work harder, put in extra hours. Don't make yourself nuts. But so what happened was McKenna literally sat in a little fishbowl of my house. For 3 weeks, we architected what it meant to do this basic pitching class called Pitch Secrets Masterclass, which I am teaching tonight. I've been teaching it for 2 hours live every Sunday since we started 4 years ago. And we now have 38,000 active students. Then I had 25 people in a room, and I pitched them a training for $1,000 each. I woke up the next morning, and I said to my daughter, what does K stand for? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, it says in the account I have 25K. She's like, Mom, you closed 100% of the room, and you made $25,000 in one night. And I swear to God, at that moment, my life pivoted forever. Now I understood what webinars were, and all of a sudden, we did that 4 times in a row. That's a 6-figure business for a 17-year-old and a woman who's never been on the internet. 6 months later, we got our 2 Comma Club award for $1 million in a funnel and never looked back. And we built our little empire.
That's amazing.
Isn't it cool?
I think it's unbelievable. So for the audience, because now if I'm listening and I'm sitting here and I'm listening, how do I learn more about this pitch class?
Oh, very simple. It's called Pitch Secrets Master Class, www. Every Sunday, 2 hours live. I don't really understand all the mechanics to make it automated and fun.
Sure.
All I know is I love Zoom. I will have 500 people tonight on my Zoom call. I'm used to, I started with 20, 30, 50, 100, and I just relentlessly kept doing it and had this commitment. I can change your pitch faster than anyone else. And I love this concept. I now do TV shows. We have a new show called 60 Day Hustle that we're both on. Oh.
I think it airs August 8th on Amazon.
It does. Yeah. I went to where were you? I went to the premiere 2 nights ago. Oh, excuses.
I was literally with my surgeon in San Diego, and I couldn't make the premiere in Los Angeles that day to get out of the cast and into the bionics.
Wow.
Otherwise, I was there.
It was wonderful. I saw Rudy there. And then you and I also met on office hours and 2-minute drill. We have a lot of friends in that whole.
We spoke at a few, 6 or 7 events now?
Yes. I will tell you that has been like the greatest joy ever. I remember when I first started speaking, I also teach. So we have a track now. I'm loving the educator part of my life. I love speaking on stages, but what do you do with them afterwards? I like taking people and go, look, I've been an actress my entire life. I've worked on Broadway and movies. I have a movie coming out, by the way, in October. It's called Black Creek.
Okay.
It is it's the Expendables for martial artists.
Okay.
So not to veer off from all my pitching, which I would love you guys to come to, and I'll even give you a free link if you want, because I don't need to. Well, that's another interesting thing. But if you go to askforbesriley.com, just come for free, because I would love to. If you're part of Jeff's audience, you obviously want to learning to earn, and I think that's a valuable thing to do. The decisions. Do you believe this? The decisions you made 5 years ago are why you're here now.
Absolutely.
Right. I don't think people realize that. So as a CEO, you make a lot of decisions. That's one of the things as a CEO you must do regularly.
Well, Jeff Bezos used to have this saying, you can listen to me, but you can listen to Jeff Bezos, and he used to say when people used to congratulate him on his quarterly earnings,
right?
He used to say, that was baked 3 years ago.
Right.
I'm not worrying about that. I'm worrying about 3 years from now, because that's what we're working on today.
Obviously one of the most successful men on the planet. Apparently you just have to listen to people whose name starts with Jeff.
It helps. It helps. And the problem is, though, he has a B at the end of his initial, and I don't. Yeah. So I need to figure out how to get the B's that he has.
Well, you got enough. You have to try harder.
I do. I got more work to do.
There you go. So I got mugged in the early 80s. I was walking to my car kind of frivolously late at night after a play I was doing. I still love doing live theater. And a group of teenagers thought to steal my purse and whatever, beat me, who knows. The next day I ended up in a dojo. I hadn't really thought about that. And for 4 years, every night I went to the dojo. And for the last 30 years, I've been studying Wing Chun, Taekwondo, Aikido, and a lot of other martial arts.
Is Ip Man Wing Chun?
What is that?
Ip Man, the famous guy who taught Bruce Lee. Was that Wing Chun?
No, I don't know if that. Well, I'll tell you what, Wing Chun was started by a nun. It is a female martial art, and it's Chinese. So I went from Chinese to Korean to, and it's funny because when I was a kid, there was a TV show. I never really said this story before, about these 3 people who were in a plane crash in Nepal. They were English. They got into this, and these monks gave them special powers. It's called The Champions. I don't know anyone who's ever seen the show. In fact, I had to go on the internet to make sure it wasn't part of my crazy imagination, and really it was, in fact, a show. And so they could communicate with each other. They had special powers. And I always thought, wouldn't it be fun to get all of these special powers from Nepal? And then you see Batman going up there and training and, hitting the snow. And I always had that in the back of my mind. That would be really cool. Huge fan of Bruce Lee, and not typical as a girl.
You should check out Ip Man, by the way.
I have to check this out.
It's a 4 movies on Netflix or wherever you get.
Man?
He's the guy it's a real person who trained Bruce Lee.
Oh, I'm so
the real Bruce Lee.
All right,
yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a movie, so it's like fictionalized, but it's based off the true story.
Never heard of it.
I think it's Wing Chun is what he was teaching.
All right. Well, it's all very grappling. It's very hand oriented, and so that's in the 80s, right? So then I continue on, and I end up meeting Don the Dragon Wilson Don is probably he's an 11-time world champion kickboxer, and I helped him do some of his internet stuff. And then I have a fitness product, which I don't have at the moment.
Yep.
I have one
It's
in
an
the car.
awesome fitness product.
Thank you. It's called a SpinGym. I probably should go grab one. Joshua, if you listen to this, it's, it is part of, I think I was supposed to bring it out to the world. It's also a Chinese design. It's allowed me to have arms and a body and strength, and I've sold a couple of million of them. And so I love to train black belts because black belts will listen to you, and I get that very masculine energy when I do that. I train people in armed services. I train boot campers. It's pretty intense. I love to train that hard. I was a Broadway dancer. So for me, that level of discipline, you don't find that in everyday life. You can't do that with your employees or with your friends, but you walk into a room full of black belts and you can say jump, and they're like, how high? Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Mm-hmm. And I got an award for being a martial artist. I'm like, really? Okay, this is fascinating because I trained a lot of them. And then I met this most amazing woman, Cynthia Rothrock. Cynthia is the leading female actress in martial arts. You don't know who she is, do you?
I do not.
Which is crazy. She's done 80 movies. This goes back.
Do I know her face?
No.
Okay.
No, for two reasons. One, martial art movies are not incredibly popular. But her very first co-star, Michelle Yeoh, is the woman who won the Oscar 2 years ago. It's a very male-dominated, you don't see a lot of women kicking butt. Now you are just beginning in movies to see it, but they're actresses who are pretending to know martial arts. She really is the real deal. She got tired about 2 years ago and said, I'm going to do my own movie. And this is so entrepreneurial. Between a little Kickstarter and a great script, she said, I'm going to do a female revenge piece where I star in it. I'm going to bring all my old action movie stars who are also not getting hired anymore into this action-packed Western. I know. I hear about this. I'm like, you know what, Cynthia? I'm just going to help fund this. I had no other ulterior motive. I mean, I would love to have been in it, but I wrote her a check and said, be part of this. She calls me and says, Forbes, we're looking at a couple of really well-known actors, but would you play the bad girl? Would you own the brothel? Would you be the bad? I'm like, hello, sign me up. In last October, we go to the Tucson, old movie town where they shot Tombstone and Quick and the Dead.
I went to University of Arizona in Tucson.
Did you really?
I did. Tear down.
So I'm gonna
Harvard of the West.
That is so funny. Oh, I turned my phone off because I didn't want it to beep. I will send you a picture to put into this episode of me wearing this Western garb. And then the other thing that's cool about this is there's a sub-story about sex trafficking. And I'm a big proponent. I was also a victim of this, and I didn't even realize what was happening at the time. And so now I'm a crazy advocate about, again, women's rights, women owning who they are because we are so willing to subjugate ourselves for silly things. In my case, it was just to have a great night, and all this money was being thrown around, and I got very seduced into something, and I almost lost my entire world. If what had happened, I was over in the UK, had happened, I would have never been seen again. And that happens to too many people.
Yeah.
So I got to play this in a movie. It's coming out in October. I just saw it 2 nights ago.
Ooh, I can't wait to see it.
This was really fun. Now I'm like, I forgot about how much fun it is to make movies. I've done a lot of them in my life, and I stopped for a while to raise children. I'm glad I did, because as you know, as a dad, your kids never say to you, Dad, I wish you spent a little more time at the office.
Nope. And there's nothing better.
How old are they now?
19. Well, just about to be 19 and 12.
Oh, you still have 12. 12 is good. Yeah, they're both 21, and they're both doing their thing, which is the job that you set out to do, but it's a little weird being an empty nester.
I mean, I hear that, and this is just me, but my favorite thing about being a dad is watching them through the lens of their independence, not through the lens of they need me and they're in my house, and I actually am more excited watching the human they become. Maybe because I'm an entrepreneur, it's like seeing your company and you're building your company or your product, and then finally it goes to market and you see what happens.
I could talk about.
I don't know if that's what it is, but that's my favorite part.
And I could talk about that all day long, because I love who they've become, and I love highlighting the two of them and all the lessons that I taught them to get on stage and speak and to have their own businesses and to be it's so funny to be what I dreamed they could be. And I will tell you, are you married?
Yes.
I think that helps a lot.
Yes.
I'm married to the most wonderful man in the world, present company excluded.
Sorry.
But it makes, if I didn't have that, I think I'd be insanely lonely. So I'm very, very happy that I filled out that part of my life. I set out a design to find the second most amazing man in my life and say, you know what, because he's not the dad of my kids, but I waited. I'm glad I waited and found him. But I'm glad that they're off doing their own thing, because I think when they were little, I loved that they needed me.
Yeah, if I get it.
I love being mom.
But I'll be honest, you just said what you've taught them, and I'll tell you, I've learned more being a dad than I think. I've helped instill them values in them. But
Right.
what I can take from learning from them
Yes.
has changed my whole life. And I've made millions of dollars as a result of it and built better businesses because of it. Because my belief is everything is a formula. Success is a formula in everything and anything. That's the whole premise of this show, because what makes Forbes Riley successful, and you've been saying it with all of the words and all the stories and lessons you've been mentioning in the last 25 minutes that we've been talking.
Right.
You've been sharing a lot of your formula, whether or not it's basically what your daughter said to you. You
Oh,
do have a system. You
I
don't
know
realize you do, but
Well-
you have the pitch, you have the work ethic, you have the desire to be the best. So what I've learned from my kids is if you actually go back to being a kid, you'll be successful. Because we teach kids not to talk to strangers. So what do we do as adults? We don't communicate, we don't talk, we don't build relationships. We tell ourselves because we fail at something 1 or 2 times we can't do it. When you watch a kid learn to walk, how many times do they fall down?
I
Learn
teach
to
the same
talk,
thing, Jeff. Yes.
ride a bike.
Yep.
If adults had to learn to talk or walk, we
Right.
would be mutes and never move.
I agree with you 100%. And it's crazy.
It is crazy. And
Yep.
we are embarrassed to have an imagination and make ourselves look like a fool and sing and cry and dance like little kids do, but they're not embarrassed. And we don't judge a book by its cover when you're a 5-year-old. You just put 5-year-olds in a park. They play. They don't care how much money, what their background is. They look for people who are fun. They have enjoy, and they go, and they're lighting up, and they're living in the moment. When you put all those together, you win.
I totally agree. And you also dream bigger than you ever imagined. I mean, like you said, kids have an imagination
Yes.
that adults stopped. I don't know where I missed that because I didn't give it up. In fact, so every time I get to an obstacle, and I really talk about that you're the sum of the obstacles you overcome. And in my teaching, exactly your same philosophy. I talk about all the horrible things that have happened to me. I raised a little boy who was murdered for 12 years of my life with him. And a kid from South Central, not mine, that I gave birth to, but he was best man at my wedding, loved him, helped raise him. And because the kid who killed him didn't have a mentor. So I keep talking about the stories that I want to propel forward. Just recently, and somebody said to me, I'm the queen of reinvention. I used to be the queen of infomercials. Now I'm reinvention. 5 months ago, after I saw you, we were on a spring break. Have you been to Iceland yet?
I have not. Reykjavik's on
Put
my
it
list.
on
But the
your list.
volcano.
Not even, yeah, well, okay.
That kept me from going.
No, that's why you want to go. Oh, wait, I have a beautiful photo. I'm going to have to turn my phone on, damn. I'm going to have to show you.
Please.
I have a picture of me watching the volcano explode, okay? Like the picture of the volcano is on the cover of the New York Times.
Yes.
And I have the same photo. I was the exact same place that the Getty photographer by accident or not by divine intervention. And I don't know, I was going to say, I don't know what you believe. I don't know what I believe at the moment. So get this. We land in Iceland. Great idea. It's like Disneyland for adults. There's giant lagoons and geysers and waterfalls. And we just got in a car and had the most amazing adventure. About 5 days into our 7-day trip, we're snowmobiling. Now go back to James Bond.
Yep.
I'm going to show you a picture. We're snowmobiling on a glacier. And I'm like, this is such a Bond moment. This is so freaking cool. I love this. We're driving back and our car we were 3 vans, 16 people each, really big tires. And somehow we're driving and our guy caught air and the whole van crashed on my side of the bus. My face goes through the glass. I open my eyes. There's glass everywhere. And there's the street. McKenna's behind me. She experienced the exact same thing. Josh was here. All 200 pounds of him came crashing down on me, and I tore my shoulder. My son's back there, and there's people dangling from their seatbelts. Okay, you're like, and at some moment, if you've ever been in any kind of accident, everything slows down, and you're like, is this a movie? What's going on? Next thing you know, people are like, okay, get the cutters out because people are being strangled up there. And I'm like, can you move? And I'm like, I think I can. I'm like, at that moment, you do not know because there's blood all over my hand. We get out of the vehicle, and aside from my hand being cut on my shoulder, my face is fine. Jeff, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't want to get too emotional about it, but I literally feel like somebody just said, this is not going to happen right now.
Wow.
And we all suffered a fair amount of PTSD. Now, here's the thing. We're all suffering from PTSD driving down the road and a volcano explodes. You're like, I am in somebody else's movie right now. I just think I want to go home. We get home, and Joshua turns to me, and he says, I have to enter a bodybuilding competition. It's in our hometown to qualify for Mr. Olympia. And I'm like, good for you. You're a professional bodybuilder. By the way, I'm in the National Fitness Hall of Fame. You know why? I've sold more than anyone else. I used to joke around that I'm the least fit person in the National Fitness Hall because I don't have any awards. I'm not a bodybuilder. And I always wore jackets to cover up. I've always been like a little bit fluffy. And I was always, I don't know if your daughters deal with this, but as an actress, if you were not underweight when I was growing up, you didn't work. I used to stand next to Meg Ryan and Julianne Moore in a soap opera, and I used to say that if they were like this skinny, I was this wide, I was fat. Well, but the phone's supposed to be wide. Doesn't matter. So most of my life, I was made to feel really horrible about my physical. And he said, well, there's a category for over 60. I don't know if you noticed. And I said, so what? And we looked at each other and thought, you know what? What's the most outrageous thing I could do right now? Damn it. I could enter a bodybuilding competition in 99 days. You trained for a very long time to get a physique. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do this. Have you seen this photo?
I saw the photo of the before and after that you posted.
Right. So explain.
I didn't see your model, but the photo, and I'm not going to comment on your descriptive adjectives because I disagree with how you are portraying yourself.
Right.
Both pictures, you look great. You can clearly see a 99-day transformation, though, and how much effort and dedication you put into that journey.
Well, so here it's interesting. In January of this year, Josh and I both had our weight and our body fat done. And I was at the highest weight that I've been since I was pregnant. When I was pregnant, I was in the 200s. I got up to like 150. And now, by some people, that's not heavy, but it's the highest I've ever been. And it was 33% body fat. And my doctor says you're pre-diabetic. I was like, okay, Joshua came in at 9% body fat. I was like, well, good for you. And I didn't do anything with that information except store it away and go back to work. Because for the 3 years that I built this business, I sat in a chair. I don't know if you noticed how hot, 18 hours a day.
Yep.
And I watched him go to the gym, and I kept thinking, if he goes to the gym, I can get fitter. Doesn't work that way. You had to go as well. Or I would go to the gym and say, yeah, I'm doing an hour. But you know what I did, Jeff? And this is a weird phenomenon. That I would sit in the sauna and I would do my social media, get on the bike a little bit and come home and say, I spent an hour. But I wasn't really. And I got into a weird rut. And I just think before we go, I want your audience to hear this. I started lying to myself that it was all just fine. You're allowed to get older. You're allowed to get heavier. Who cares? And this moment, this accident just shifted that and said, what are you doing? What would it take for you to really go to the gym? What would it take for you to get on stage in a bikini? And I'm like, I don't own a bikini. Mm-hmm. I pushed out 2 7-pound babies. I don't own a bikini, and I had no desire to be in one. But I set out this weird goal. And I would love to continue this conversation at some point because you as a business owner, I'm sure you do that every time you start a company. You write a business plan. You have a goal. You know what you want to visually see what you're going to create.
Yep.
So you back it out and go, all right, how do I achieve this? So Joshua, my husband, has a fitness program. He does, and I'd love you to interview him at some point. He doesn't do what anyone else in the gym does. He does no overhead presses, no pull-downs, no push-ups, no sit-ups, no dangling by anything, no bars on your back, and very little cardio. And if you look up Joshua Self, you'll
S-E-L-F?
see S-E-L-F on Instagram. You will see he just won the Arnold. He's won Mr. Universe and Mr. Olympia. He doesn't do any of those things. He has a different approach, very scientific, systematic approach. And I said, I'm going to do your system. And then I decided to eat very keto carnivore. No, I literally made a decision, and I've never done this before, not this cleanly. I said, no sugar, no carbs, no, this is what I'm going to eat, period. I also didn't have a coach because I met with a couple of coaches, and we talk about you should have a coach. Well, the coaches, as soon as I got on the phone, were like, you're going to win this thing. I'm like, win what thing? I'm going to enter a competition. How many women over 60 are there going to be? Mm-hmm. And this is me. This is what I want to win, and don't stress me out. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do it my own way. And so I did. And then I went on Instagram every day and I just talked about what I was up to. And by day 67, something really crazy happened. On day 67, I'm at the gym and I've now lost a fair amount. Ultimately, I ended up losing 15 pounds and 12% body fat. When I saw the body fat change on the scale, I was like, my doctor's like, nobody your age has 19% body fat. It's like you created something miraculous. And I was so busy doing it, I didn't really realize how good it was getting.
Yeah.
Because my girlfriend gave me a bikini to wear for the show, and it was like this big. I'm like, if I get into this, I'm going to break it. Mm-hmm. And when I got the body fat percentage, I stepped into the bikini and I put it on, and you can see it's really, I'm going to start to cry. That purple bikini, I'm like, oh my God, look how, look. But on day 67, I'd lost a fair amount of weight. I started crying hysterically in the gym. And I'm sitting there and I'm visualizing and I'm seeing flying towards a bridge. I'm seeing these things I've not ever seen. I'm like, what's happening to me? The manager of the gym comes over, he's like, you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm fine. I'm fine. And I sat there. And as I went home and I was driving, I'm like, oh my God, you're remembering something that happened to you 49 years ago that you never talked about. Like whatever just released is coming back. And it's interesting as a dad, I don't know what you're going to do with this information, but I remember I talked about flying. My dad had me go out with a friend of his who was about 30 years old. I was 15 because I was learning how to fly. And he said, hey, take my daughter out, just whatever, enjoy the afternoon. We went out to Montauk, which is an airport that dead ends into a beach. We went out there. There's nobody there. He proceeded to touch me everywhere. There was nowhere to run. There was no one to yell to. He didn't rape me, but everything short of, and I didn't understand what was going on. And I remember pretending to sleep, so he would just go away. We get back in the plane to go home. There's no other choice, and there's no cell phones then. And as we're flying, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, he's in the pilot seat, he reaches over to get me again. And this is the bridge, and this is the plane, and this is the visual that I have. We headed towards the bridge, and he saw it as he's doing this and pulled up just before we crashed into a bridge. I get out of the plane. My dad said, how was your afternoon? It was fine. Didn't say a word. What am I going to tell my dad?
Right.
Your friend did. I didn't even know what he did. I just knew it was wrong. And I get home, and my mom, most beautiful woman in the world, is like, hey, how was your afternoon? I'm like, it was fine. I was 15. I go to my room, I close the door, and I never talk about it again. It had a massive, so when you said, I like your body's fine, I hated my body. I absolutely hated my body, didn't want to wear a bathing suit, didn't want it touched. And I didn't know that was a real thing. I didn't even remember it. I will tell you, the day after, and I did a little process on myself to let this go, because I do a healing once a month with all my students and anyone who wants to come, because we all have things in our past that keep us from our future. And it's really an ironic, annoying thing that I've taught this for years, almost 30 years, Jeff. 2 months ago, I was the guest in my own training. Mm-hmm. And as soon as it was over, I put on the high heels that I was going to wear in the competition. They're like hooker high heels. Mm-hmm. And I walked into Joshua's office wearing nothing but high heels. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I found something I haven't seen in 49 years, and it's me. And so that's been, literally we competed less than a month ago. This is such a brand new story. But all the things and all the mechanisms that I created and all the systems are allowing me to do this. And part of this is the message forward, because everybody needs to hear this story.
They do. They do, Forbes. And I wish I could spend 2 hours in this conversation with you. Honestly, you have so much power to bring as a extremely successful, but more importantly, a confident, capable, dynamic woman in this world, and how you continue to bring that forward. And I think the part of what you just said, which is part of the success formula, is, as you said, you were your own student in that moment, or your own.
Yep.
Because it's authentic. You don't do things to make $1. You're not doing things to teach others and do as I say, not as I do, but you're actually, that's why you win. That is why it is, that is why you have 500 people on your call today and 35,000 people in your program, and why I had to pitch you to come down here, and why I'm excited that we got to do this and want to spend more time together, because it's authentic. And authenticity is the most attractive element of a human being. And we all can understand it, and those pitching don't realize that.
Yeah.
When you pitch something you don't believe in, we know that. But when you pitch something that you believe in, it's an authentic version of you, it becomes you. And everybody gets inspired. And you're an inspiration to me, and I know you're an inspiration to the group. And I hope you guys really listen to kind of what Forbes just said and take her up on the fact that you can go to askforbesriley.com.
Yep, askforbesriley.com every Sunday. It is a beautiful 2-hour training where I will get to, now obviously now there's 500 people, I don't get to work with as many individually, but I am there live. And then there's a series of trainings, because I would love to teach everybody my ultimate pitch formula. The things that you intuitively know. Did someone teach you pitching? You just got it.
I've had mentors and coaches my whole life, and I've been a student of success my whole life, meaning I was a small kid, athlete, always had to compete because I was the little guy late to puberty, had to fight for everything. Not Rudy, but basically Rudy.
Yeah.
Where I was like overlooked but could compete, and so I was able to play, but at first blush it was like picked last, and then it was like, oh, he can actually play. Right. And I had to do that and over again. So I think just studying all the best and how I could learn to overcome some of the physical limitations I had, wanting to be a professional athlete, and then not the smartest guy in the world, but decent, same thing. So it was just what I wanted was to win in success. That's what always just I'm attracted to that. And so it was like, how do I reverse engineer this?
Right.
And then I started to learn what are the qualities of people who win. And then you start to look at people who are winning that aren't the biggest, baddest, most intelligent.
Who knew, right?
Who knew? And it's, hard work. Wow.
Hard work and structure. And I love that your audience is getting to listen. That's a powerful story. that you don't have to start with all the gifts in the beginning. You just have to figure out what it is you want. The people that I meet, though, as entrepreneurs, spend their time, and it's probably you, because like my dad was a tinkerer and a magician and an inventor. And one day he came to me, we're in his garage with all these magnificently crazy things. He said, kiddo, how do I get them out to the world? I said, I have no idea, Dad, I'm 8. And then I spent my life helping inventors, because people like you guys watching, you have a book or a coaching or an idea, but you have no way to get it out there. That bridge about pitching that I'm so good at will literally get your idea. Even if you ask someone to marry you, that's a pitch.
Oh, yeah.
And when you hone that skill, I have now, thank God, through this last 4 years, met so many people, and not one of them really gets it until they go through this. I'm like, here's a system.
Yeah.
Here's a way to engage, to make an assumption about the other person listening, to be authentic. I mean, I didn't know authentic was a tool, but it really is. Stop all the bullshit going, hey, Jeff, I have a pitch for you.
Yeah.
No, bullshit. I got something I want to share with you. And if I can get you to want it, as opposed to tell you that you need it, you will be with me all day long.
Absolutely. And being vulnerable in that pitch is okay.
See, I don't remember many men who ever say that. That's a very interesting observation on your part.
Because it's the truth.
See, it's why we're watching his show. No, I'm serious. I mean, I literally could do this all day, too. I have not, and I can't wait to have you on my podcast.
I would love to.
Yeah, I have a beautiful show I've done for the last 15 years, because I do think, I love this genre.
Yes.
It is allowing us to have a conversation that's not scripted. I love when we start, he's like, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, whatever the ether wants us to, whatever they need
Actually,
to hear.
What do you want to make sure we talk about?
Oh, well, you know what? I just want to invite you guys to learn something that maybe no one's ever taught you. This is a skill that I got downloaded. I didn't learn this in particular. I don't know anyone who teaches it. It's not sales training. I don't really care about all of those things.
I don't even believe in sales. Even though I'm a sales guy my whole life. That's what I've been coined. The word sales to me means you're going to convince someone to buy something they don't want. I like solution-based selling, meaning I want to find a solution for your problem, whatever that is. And I'm not selling you anything. I'm solving your problems. And if I solve your problems, guess what? You win, I win, we all win.
Dude, you're like a brother from another mother. No, because I've been doing this for now a long, long time.
Sure.
I've never heard anyone. I go into major companies because they want to hear how I do this.
Yes.
And one of the secret sentences that I use is, rather than tell your customer what they need, what's the biggest problem your customer suffers from?
That's right.
So when you do your business, I mean, that sounds like what you do.
Everything I do is about that. Whether it's friends, my kids, business, ideas, investing. If you can identify the problems of society and where the money's going to flow because we have to solve them and a company can solve it, invest in that company. It makes investing easy.
Yes, it does.
Right? I think we've overcomplicated because we're like, oh, we need to sell. Well, now you're trying to convince people to buy something that's not right for them. That's a transaction. I'm not into that. I want to sell somebody a solution that they need to a problem, because it's now going to make them feel like I helped them. And now we're together forever.
Right.
And guess what? I can go back to them and sell them another solution to a problem they're going to have in 3 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, and they love me the whole time because I didn't ever sell them something they don't want. I actually tell everybody, like, if you want to buy an Everbowl franchise, the first thing I say to every franchisee when I talk to them is, let's find a reason not to move forward. Go through this entire process and scrutinize it and find a reason not to buy one of our franchises. And if we get to the end of the road and you can't, and neither can I, let's do a franchise together. That's it.
Wow. How many do you have so far?
We have just about 400 around the country.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to have to come back because we're going to have SpinGym. I think SpinGym needs to be a franchise, and you may be the guy to help me do that.
I'm happy to talk about it, and I'd love to be on your show, and I can't wait to join your 2-hour Sunday Ask Forbes Riley.
Really?
I want to learn. Yeah, of course.
Wow. Well, that's quite a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Yes, and I got to end with, we got rapid fire.
Okay,
3
go.
questions. You stare into camera 1.
Staring camera 1.
Yes.
Hello,
I'm
everybody.
going to ask you 3 questions.
Okay.
First thing that comes to mind.
You just, first thing coming to mind is he dropped his phone on the floor.
How did your early life challenges help shape who you are so you could overcome both your personal and professional obstacles?
You know, all your early life is what shapes you moving forward. In fact, I often go in one of my trainings, ask you what your first memory in life was, because you make a decision about those things. And my decision back then was I found my grandma, she had passed away, she was in my bedroom, and my mom was never happy, and my entire life became to make my mother happy. The interesting thing is my daughter picked up on that, because at some point you go through life and you can get very sad. And she said, Mom, I'm going to do something for you. My mother was held up at the house when I was 15 years old at gunpoint, and they stole all of our jewelry. They stole everything in our home, and it was really sad. And one day we're walking with her grandparents at a jewelry counter, and Grandpa buys Grandma a beautiful diamond something. And I have this look on my face, and this little girl looks at me, and she's like, Mom, do you want something? I'm like, no, I'm fine. You know what FINE stands for? Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. I'm fine. He said, well, can you afford it? I said, I could afford everything here. So why don't you buy yourself something? And I'm like, I just stop. And I didn't know that I had that energy, that unhappy energy. And my little girl says to me, Mom, I want to buy you a diamond for every year that I'm alive. And I'm like, okay, that's really sweet, baby. Well, she did. She bought me a beautiful diamond necklace with her own money when she was 15 years old. And last year she came to me and said, Mom, our company does so well. I want to treat you to something that you've never really had before. And Jeff, she made, designed, and bought me this. And I will tell you, her belief in me and her saying, look, Mom, you have to walk the walk. You teach people a lot of things, but you're not always living up to them in your own life. And making that has helped my professional and my business life all feel like the right way to go.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received about achieving your dreams?
Wow, you know, you don't have 2 hours for me to do this.
Rapid fire.
Well, one of the things that just happened is I walked across an age. I crossed over 60. I know I don't look it, but it is a number, and it's a real number. And I got very upset by the number. And I spent many years of my life working out with Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne was the godfather of fitness. I was lucky enough to spend 8 years on TV with him. His wife of 50 years, and myself sold a juicer in an infomercial. Guys, for 8 years in 80 countries, we sold $1 billion worth of juicers. I'm at Elaine's house. She's 96 at the time. She's now 98. And I was feeling sad. And you're going to feel sad about something in your life where you just inexplicably, and everyone around you will agree with you. This is the worst part. You have to surround yourself with the right kind of people. And Elaine had me look at a book that was on the table, and she said, how old do you think I am on the cover of the book? And I'm like, you look like you're 40. You got leg warmers and a leotard on. I said, I'm in my 60s. 60s were my best decade. Don't screw it up.
If you had to define yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Dynamic, eclectic, adorable.
Well, you heard it here. Dynamic, eclectic, and adorable Forbes
I can't believe
Riley.
you said that out loud. Oh, my God.
Oh, one on Jeff.
Adorable.
No, I love it. I agree on all 3 of those.
Oh, well, thank you.
I also think badass, inspiring, confident.
Oh, keep going. Come on. So it's not just 3 words.
Yeah, I mean, those are my 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Badass, confident, and inspiring. I will take that. That's the title of my new book coming out soon. Actually, I do have a new book coming out. I'm writing a book called Pitch Secrets A to Z.
Okay.
Because I think that is, I just, you know, do you imagine if people knew what you knew, what would they be? Happier?
Yes.
More successful?
Yes.
Healthier?
Yes.
I feel the same way. And I look at people and I'm like, you guys don't know what I know. If you did, your life would be better off. And that's why I'm pitching that particular book. So I have that TV series, a new movie coming out, and my class every Sunday. Life is good.
And SpinGym.
And SpinGym.
You need to get more involved with Forbes Riley.
Oh.
She has so much to teach you, so much you can learn from, both from her experience in her life. I continue to get inspired and learn from you. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today.
This was so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone. First, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And if you guys haven't heard about my new book, Relationship Bank Account, click the link in the show notes or search the title on Amazon. This book is packed with all my secrets to success in both relationships and life. Make sure to pick up a copy, and if the book helps you on your journey, let us know by leaving a review. I appreciate all of you and can't wait to see you on the next one.